You are logged into the using the caregiver section of the CANS to give families a leg up session. And I would like to introduce to you your presenters. We have Joel Boultinghouse, we have Janet Becky Hecke, and we have Nancy Craig. So please take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, I'll need to get back to sharing my screen now. All right, do we have that up for everybody?
It's coming up. There it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see if I can make this happen now. I want to make sure I get the chat up so that I can see. Everything moves around when you put things up on the screen. Okay, so we still got that up. Mm-hmm. All right, we're good. Well, welcome everybody. I know there's been a little bit of difficulty getting into the right session today, so we're all super happy that you're here, and I'm excited to share the next hour or so with you. The slide that we put up this morning just for you, we wanted to find out if it looks familiar to you, maybe before you meet a family all the way through, when you've met them, or has it been what you've been accustomed to over the last year with COVID? Maybe some of you have experienced the same things that parents of children with serious challenges have experienced on a daily basis in our lives. So we're here today with using the caregiver section of the CANS to give family a leg up. Many places that use the CANS are still struggling with family engagement and how to transition from a fail first, what's wrong with the child, transactional evaluation, to a strengths and needs-based relational understanding of a family unit. We're going to focus a little time today on the caregiver section of the CANS. Reactions to this section range from easily overlooked to the blame game and everywhere in between. But we are here to hear and challenge those beliefs and help you find ways to use the caregiver section of the CANS to engage families and help the system of care authentically understand the caregiver's challenges and acknowledge their unique and genuine strengths. I thought it was really interesting this morning in one of the keynotes where he was talking about the extended families and how their strengths play into a child developing their own strengths. All of that is part and parcel of what we think about as parents every day. I always like to say all parents and caregivers and families have strengths and add value to the work. Without this partnership together, building resiliency, there isn't sustainability over time. So this is just our disclosure statement. None of us have anything to disclose this morning. And Joel, why don't you take it away?
My name is Joel Boultinghouse. I'm the Executive Director of Behavioral Services of Louisiana, and we are a statewide family support organization, FSO. We operate in the statewide coordinated system of care in Louisiana. It's a waiver system in Louisiana. Right now we have slots for about 3,000 kids across the state, and when they qualify for the waiver, they qualify for the two services that we offer, which are parent peer support and youth peer support. And again, we are statewide in Louisiana. Nancy?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad that you're with us. My name is Nancy Craig, and I am the director at Families Together in New York State, the statewide family-run organization. And we in New York are a CANS state, so this is really exciting for me, as well as I help to oversee our family support programs in New York State, along with the rest of our agency. And we have 67 community-based family support programs and over 100 family support workers, family peer advocates, we call them in New York, that are embedded within organizations, in the clinics, in the residentials, in our home and community-based waiver, and some of our other Medicaid reimbursable programs. And in New York, we created an outcome tool specifically for family peer support that's called FANS, Family Needs and Strengths Assessment, in partnership with Dr. Lyons and his crew. So we're excited to be able to talk a little bit today about the CANs and how that intersects with families, and give you guys hopefully a few tips. So thank you so much. And we're going to pass it over to Janet.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Janet Hecke. I'm a parent in Idaho, and I participate in the state leadership for providing parent perspective to the development of the YES system of care, the Youth Empowerment Services system of care. And I also am a member of the Idaho Parent Network. I am a parent of a child who struggled with some serious emotional issues and passed away from suicide about 10 years ago. I'm also the parent of a child with a severe developmental issue and a neurotypical child. So this is a passion project for me. I love being here and working with Nancy and Joel. They are invaluable to the progress in their states, and just been a real joy for me to work with. So we're going to jump right in this morning. I think, Nancy, I'm tossing it back to you.
Okay. So a lot of the work that we do, it's all about this relationship that we build, right? We can't do the work alone. We need to have good understanding of maybe what you've not experienced before in your own life. And we as family members definitely have experienced a little bit of everything. So we're going to, I think we're going to jump right into, thank you, Janet. Lots of times what we hear from families, not just our families, but a whole bunch of families, is that doing the CANs, and especially the caregiver section, it's like a drive-by questioning. It's like things are so rapid fire that it just feels like all of this information is coming at you, more questions, without that relationship or understanding about why you're asking me these questions. What does it have to do with my young person? And how are you going to use it? And darn it, it's none of your damn business. So all of those things are going on in a family's life as you're firing away at those questions. And some of those questions, they're unrelated, right? Like, we're not sure why you're asking, but we're afraid not to tell you. So we feel like we've been interrogated rather than supported. And I'm going to pass this to Joel because he has a wonderful way to look at when we're asking the fans questions, the caregiver section. It's called done versus good.
Yeah. Like Janet said earlier, I am also the parent of a child with complex challenges. And so I've been on the other side of these assessments, and it can be as the cartoon there, a drive-by fruiting. You know, you just feel like you're getting assaulted with all these very, very challenging questions that they're asking. And so what we like to tell our staff is just, going back to the relationship aspect that we were just talking about, it's real important to let our staff know that, you could be done. You've got a timeline, it's billable services and all that, but it really doesn't take a lot more to make it a good assessment just versus a done assessment. So we really try to get our staff to remember that they are peers themselves and just be able to approach it from knowing what it's like to be on the other side of that laptop or the other side of that clipboard or that stack of papers as you're doing these assessments and CANs and other, again, just very, not assaultive, but they're challenging questions. And so we just try to let our staff know to give that little bit of extra, so that could be a good assessment instead of just a done assessment. Because again, going back to peer services, or family run services, it's important to not make these families feel judged, because that's going to end that relationship that you're trying to build. So we have an exercise, running off of a few different things, that will try to help you relate to the caregiver in a different way.
At the bottom of the toolbar, you'll see there are 3 dots on the far side where you'll find reactions that will pop up the options shown on the slide. You can react in any way you want. You can react in the chat box. You can react with those little, the little icons that'll pop up on your screen for where your name is. It'll pop up in the corner. Do know that to unreact when we move on to the next question, you have to unclick it and click back. But like I said, you can use the chat feature. You can use anything. We just are trying to get, because this was originally planned to be in person, and we were going to have everyone stand up and move across the room so we could kind of see where people ended up in the end. We're just going to try and this will be a very fast exercise for us all. So we're going to pop through some questions that are on the caregiver section of the CANs in our 3 states. And we would just like you to very quickly respond either in the affirmative in some way or in the negatives in some way, if it applies to you or doesn't apply to you as a parent. So let's see. I think you were going to start us off.
Yep, Joel.
Okay, so parent, do you have any issues with physical health?
Do you have any, oh, Janet, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to give them a chance to respond here. So we've got a couple that have come up. See the thumbs up, the thumbs downs. Track yeses and nos. Yep, that's good. Okay. As a caregiver, do you have any mental health issues?
As a caregiver, do you have issues with your partner relationships?
As a caregiver, do you have any issues with language or acculturation? I'm seeing some challenges there.
Yeah. As a parent or caregiver, do you have challenges with self-care and daily living activities?
As a caregiver, do you have any challenges with organization, maintaining your household?
These are fun. As a parent or caregiver, do you have any issues or challenges with resourcefulness?
As a parent, do you suffer from parenting stress? I don't see a lot of thumbs up on this one. I'll be surprised. Like the tears, Kathy.
Just running down. As a parent or caregiver, do you have challenges with your financial resources?
As a parent or caregiver, do you have any challenges, issues feeling safe in relation to others?
As a parent or caregiver, do you have challenges with informal supports?
As a parent or caregiver, do you have challenges understanding the knowledge of conditions that you're dealing with your children? Oh, wow.
And do you have any challenges or issues with care or treatment involvement?
And finally, as a parent or caregiver, do you have struggles with accessibility to child care services? So we have a good mix of people here today. There are several people have issues in a lot of different areas. How many of you hesitated to divulge with a reaction or felt it was invasive to your life? Interesting. All right.
Well, that was great. And we really want to say thank you for participating and just getting a little bit of a feel of what it is when those questions are being asked to family members. And to, you know, go back to our original, this is about the relationship. And so we wanted to share a little bit. Because we are three very, very diverse states. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of a update on how we, as each of these states, use use the caregiver section or use the CANs in our state. So for New York, the parent partners go in sometimes before the family even hits the service, any system service. We are, you know, our family peer support services in New York are, if a family needs help and whatever that help looks like, if a family has questions, they don't know where to turn, they can come to our service, which is free. And this saves a lot of time because the family peer parent partner or family peer advocate can help that family navigate from hello, right? So that you're not relearning or feeling like the system wasn't responsive to you. I'm not saying it's great, people. It's a work in progress, but we do have the ability to serve families before they're involved, before, during, and after they're involved in any kind of formal support service. So I'm going to pass it over to Joel because Louisiana has a little bit different.
Yeah, you know, we try to always keep you know, SAMHSA's peer core competencies in mind when we're working with these families. You know, we try to let these families know that, you know, these CANs and other assessments that are used are difficult. So acknowledging that and not, you know, just writing it off like taking blood pressure or temperature, you know, that could be challenging for some people. And we try to acknowledge and say, you know, there are going to be some difficult questions. I forgot who said it, but right as we were switching screens, someone in the chat said that a informal survey would have felt more comfortable. And yeah, that's true. And that's kind of why we wanted it to present all these questions publicly that way, because that's kind of the experience that the people on the other side of this laptop or the other side of the assessment experience. And it is challenging. They are very intimate questions. And so we try to, again, make sure that we say, you know, this is a difficult process. You know, these families come in, you know, you get, usually it's not always crisis, but a lot of times it's a crisis that leads to these referrals in these systems. Certainly in Louisiana, it is hospitalizations, arrests, expulsions and stuff. So we just try to acknowledge and validate that they are oftentimes in a difficult situation when they come in for services. And also when you're further on, and it's challenging during an assessment, of course, but we do like to, if they do bring up something, you know, ask for permission before going further. You know, so many people have had to tell these stories over and over again, and they may not want to, you know. So we do try to just, again, you know, just acknowledge how challenging it is and ask for permission so that you give them off the bat, you know, a kind of a say in what's going on. And again, that's very aspirational. That is a big part of what we try to always remind our staff to do, and sometimes it is challenging. But one thing that we do well in Louisiana is with Magellan, the health insurance company. We have weekly calls that we go over the most challenging. It could be a dozen one week, it could be 20, 30 the next week or so, but usually arrests, hospitalizations, things, psychiatrically, challenging behaviors. We do coordinate with Magellan, and so that we could go to these wraparound agencies and all of us be on the same page and not just a little silo here and a silo there working. We try to coordinate services really well. And so that's actually something that I'm proud of in Louisiana, that we do successfully, I feel. So now we're going to go off to northwest out to Idaho, Janet.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're supposed to do in Idaho, and I know it's really helpful when we do, is giving families a copy of the cans before it's finalized and going through it so that you come to an agreement. Not having that copy of the cans and coming to an agreement about it makes families feel like they're being judged and like you're withholding information. It's kind of like the secret sauce behind the curtain, right? You might be writing something in there that they feel is judgmental, and it can come from anything because we're a little hyper vigilant maybe when we're divulging all of this information. So it's like the family is on the outside trying to look in and understand what's happening. By giving the family a copy of the cans beforehand and coming to an agreement about what it says builds trust, and it makes the experience relational and not transactional. That helps the family acknowledge areas of need and that they can grow in, and it also allows them to see growth over time.
All right. So we started off about building a relationship, and now we're going to talk about safety a little bit. So this perception starts before conscious thought. And I'm going to start a timer right now on my clock, on my phone. And I want you guys to read this 5 times a second. At an unconscious level, your brain is scanning the environment around you and asking itself, is it safe or is it dangerous? 5 times a second. Can you imagine? Right now, I've talked for 20 seconds, but we've talked for 20 minutes. So how many times did our unconscious thought process ask that question of itself? This goes back to, fight, flight, freeze, or, in my world, just pretend it didn't happen and go on with living. So I just want to say one thing about that, about this safety. Sometimes in our world, we judge who comes into it, new people that comes into it, by the last person who left, right? So we judge you, clinician, care manager, by the one I had before. And on some level, that's just human nature. And on some level, you're judging me by the family that you just left as well. So I want people to kind of think about why families don't share everything right up front, because I did that once. And I thought that these people were in our life too. They had the best interest for us. They were going to help us. And if I was truthful about everything, that we would get the help that we needed as a family. Instead, what we got is the Department of Social Services and Child Welfare in our life, because someone thought that what I was sharing was inappropriate and that I wasn't a good mother. So when families don't share, because somebody before them might have done that. So when we want to be truthful and honest, we have to think about the safety wise on why families don't share everything. So if in 28 seconds, my body has thought about, leaving, getting out of this situation that I didn't feel safe. Can you imagine what an hour-long visit as you're asking those invasive questions, and all I want to do is run and not answer. So those are things that we just want you guys to think about is safety. It's the relationship, but you have to have safety with it. In New York, we use this kind of a picture to help folks understand the different levels of a CANS or the FANS tool in our case, right? Everything's sunny, got a little cloud going on. Oh, we got some smoldering wood, or the house is on fire. That's a good way to help the families, because when you're asking these questions and you're trying to get me to figure out which one of those areas I'm the best at, or I feel like I fall into, because you're great care managers and clinicians, because you're doing it with me, not to me. Using something like this will be helpful to a family to kind of figure out if it's a real crisis, or we just got to kind of watch it, or what's happening. So thank you, Janet.
All right. Well, strengths. It's about safety, but it's also about strengths. That S in CANS is strengths. And, you know, like I said earlier, children often get referred to the program because of a challenge. So it's really hard. And I also think important to start off trying to bring to the fore these families' strengths. And what we do is we teach our staff. It's a part of our orientation for our staff, but also it's something that we continually do, is helping our staff get these families to reframe, switch their perspective, trying to look at maybe potential challenges and reframing them into strengths. For example, a parent caregiver will say, my son is stupid. He makes bad grades. And, knowing, yes, they might make good grades, but ask them, and for example, with my son, if you ask him how fast the latest Lamborghini could go, or how many champions LeBron James has won, and how tall he is, and how the New Orleans Pelicans are doing, all that, he's very, knowledgeable about that. So trying to reframe, and sometimes that can be challenging. My son, and I'm not personally, but if a parent would say, my son's hanging out with the wrong crowd, I'm worried he might be in a gang. And so reframing that could be, well, this child wants acceptance, they want love, they want to be part of a group. So again, just working to kind of turn these things, your perspective of, instead of having the negative lens on, start with the positive and seeing the strengths, pulling out these strengths from potential challenging behaviors or bad grades or other, again, challenges, and trying to reframe those as strengths. So we're going to look at a little picture, and we're going to get y'all to get back to your chats. Go onto your chats, and we want y'all to look at this picture, and only in the chats, only mention the strengths that you see. No negatives, only strengths. Give y'all a while, a lot going on.
Family bonding, food available.
Yep, food, good.
2 adults present.
Good. Wow.
Family pictures, caregivers returning from work, peace. They have a house. The kid is hugging a man, shelter, hugs. Mom's practicing self-care, heat.
Toys.
Kids playing with an adult, pets, food's present. There's entertainment, plenty. You guys are good, man. I looked at this the first time and I'm like, whoa, dude, that doesn't look like any house I want to be in.
Yep, smiling.
Versus a heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Books.
TV's
Almost
working.
lived in.
Family pictures, clothes.
You guys just teach the class. Forget us. We don't have anything to share. You're good.
This is great.
Got drinks, utilities. There isn't hazardous waste like cat food. The kids can get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Outside recreation with the skateboard, sports, baby bottle.
Wow.
Entertainment.
The mail just returned from work. Entertainment, books, pet. Yeah. TV service. Yeah, you guys are doing.
You're purifier.
You're all hired. You're moving to Idaho. You didn't know that?
Fantastic.
Yeah, fruit. That's good. Clothes are in the basket. Medicine. Everyone has clothes on. Good day in this house. Puzzles. Groceries. Yeah. They're self-reliant. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. You guys did good.
See, this is
one time we did this
TCOM.
in New York, and the most they got was 150 strengths. So I think you guys got over 150.
Physical closeness. Happy.
So talking about these strengths, if someone doing an assessment in the home went into this home and used the word messy, that's just totally focusing on the wrong things, and that will make them defensive. It'll shut them down. It'll harm the relationship. There'll be no hope, because we when we were planning for this, we used the term, environmental culture of the family, and I think if somebody would go into this home and just sit there for a while, be with the family for a while, they will see that culture and see all the goodness, as opposed to, the clutter, the other things that, again, somebody could say, oh, it's messy, you need to clean, you need to vacuum, you shouldn't have this here, you shouldn't have that there, the kid shouldn't be, doing this and stuff. But if you look at the strengths and you're able to, again, acknowledge that this is this family's culture, this is the way they live, this is their norm, you're not being judgmental, you're fostering a relationship, they're going to be a lot more likely to open up. And what's important for, a lot of our services in Louisiana are home and community based. So if you go from home to home, there might be a horrible family that you go into with abuse and no electricity and all these other things. I don't want to say horrible, that's not very strength-based, but every family that you go to is different. It's going to have a different environmental culture. Janet used the term that she tells her staff to just shake off the previous home, shake off the previous family, for good or for bad, because again, it could have those lenses that you're seeing through, and you need to see every family especially with open eyes so that you can pick out these strengths that y'all did so great at.
Yeah, Lucas, I like that you said, always think of it as a family came to my house on a bad day. And the other thing that Beth said about going into a spotless, nice home where there's abuse that's well hidden. We talked about that too. Like, you can go into a house that you see everything looks great, but man, what's behind the closed doors on that house, right? So what you see when you first walk in, first of all, you don't know what just happened in that family's life that caused them to be maybe messier than usual or to be more stressed than usual. And you can guarantee if you're going into their home, it's because there's a need there. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that activity. Thanks, Joel, for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for your participation. That was a lot more than I was anticipating.
All right. And so the other part that we feel like it's about foundations. Perceptions, expectations, and trust are what we consider our foundations. Now, I ran across this book, and I am a shameless gatherer of other people's good ideas to share them. So I'm actually going to share this with you. I don't know if you all can see this, but it won't focus. Maybe, no, it's blurry because I have the blurred background. Okay, well, I'll tell you. I ran across this concept called Terra in the book, The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier. And I wanted to say at the outset here, I am not trained or an expert in the concepts that he uses here. However, it struck me as incredibly useful lens to look through when examining parent engagement. Nancy talked earlier about the fact that neuroscience has revealed that we as humans are constantly scanning our environment for signs of danger or safety. And Joel walked you through how to override the default findings of danger to how we can find strengths and safety to build upon. So here we're going to dive in just a little bit into 4 areas that we can explore to increase the feelings of safety for a family. If we're truly unconsciously scanning our environment every 5 seconds for danger, then it's quite possible that having strangers taking the history of your life raising a child or children with complex challenges might just find you not on your best day, not your safest environment feeling, and feeling more like a caterpillar attached to a stick with your skin peeling off. Not the safest feeling in the world. But the place of transformation is one of the most vulnerable places you will ever stand. So how do you feel safe and at your best? So again, these are the concepts that come out of this book, The Coaching Habit. So Tara starts with tribe, perception that we're all in this together, right? So who is your tribe and what do they do for you? As someone who's going into this family to be supportive of this family, you want to increase their feelings of belonging. You want to help them with the expectations that you're going to help them understand what this process is like and that it's safe to share the ugly parts of their life. So helping them feel like you're one of them and they're one of you is a really important step to bringing families together and into a feeling of safety. You can also increase somebody's feeling of safety by dealing with their expectations. Do they know what happens next? Have you explained the process to them has anyone explained the process to them? Nancy has this great program in New York where they're going into people's homes and before they ever have a CANS, and they're explaining what's going to happen and what kinds of questions are going to be like and why they're asking all these crazy questions about whether you as a parent have a health concern or have a mental health challenge or have food insecurity. So they help the family understand what to expect and what's going to come next and what's going to be done with that information. Also, this whole part of expectation is the expectation of the family that you're going to help them navigate the system, that this isn't a one and done and you're in their life and you're going to gather all this information and you're out of here with your judgments and your whatever else. And then they get what they get, right? And it's that thing that Idaho does about going over this CANS with the family before it's finalized by letting them know what the expectation is, that you're going to help them navigate it. You're helping them by gathering the information. And trust that it may be hard for the families to hear, but you're going to tell me anyway. So if there's something that you see that I can do better or I can do differently, that you're not just going to say, well, you need to clean up that messy room or whatever, that you're going to genuinely take the time to understand what's going on in my life and help me find help to meet the needs that I'm not capable of meeting where I am currently. Then we move on to rank. This is the perception that people have equal footing in the room, equal standing. There's a lot of times as parents that in our old fail first system, for me, when I went through it with my son, I was lost. I didn't know why my son was suicidal. I didn't know how to understand it, to understand what he was going through, to get through it. And when I went into the psychiatrist's office the first time after my son had been on suicide watch for 10 days at 11 years old, there was no equality there. It was him giving me information and granting me 10 minutes of his time, which actually did a ton of damage because it didn't empower me. The suggestions that he had no understanding of what I was going through and what my experience with my son was. So it didn't really acknowledge any of that. And it was power over, not power with. So it wasn't an empowering situation. So the expectation here is that you're going to seek to understand and that you believe my story and you believe my perceptions of my story. And I think that's really critical when you're going in. And I know so many of you do this because I've met so many of you and talked to so many of you before, but there is nothing as a parent like having somebody come in and validate how hard our experience is on a day-to-day basis. So you believing that it's not my bad parenting that caused my son's mental illness, but believing my story and how much of a struggle it is for us really equals out the rank and increases the safety for the family in that situation. And then finally, we have autonomy. Nobody likes to be told what it is they're going to do, right? You wouldn't want someone coming into your home every day and telling you that you're going to make, spaghetti and meatballs for dinner tonight. And tomorrow night, you're going to make spaghetti and meatballs. And then the next night, you're going to make tacos. And the next night, it doesn't matter what it is. Humans want to have a choice. They want to feel like they have a choice. And when it comes to our children, every one of you knows this who has a child. You don't want anybody coming in telling you what you're going to choose for your child, right? It's complex decision enough. So to be able to have autonomy, to have choices, right? Like I can see 3 paths forward. Like you've shared with me that you're struggling with this and this and this. What are your ideas for how to make this better? And listen and hear what they're saying. And don't be afraid to offer your own, but help generate ideas with them. And then understand for families, sometimes the only option is a bad option. There's just not a great choice out there sometimes for the options that we have with our children. So these 3 things, this TERRA, right? The tribe, expectation, rank, and autonomy. The more you can work to increase these with the family before, during, and after your meetings, the more engagement you're going to get from your families because they're going to feel safer. And when we feel safe, our brains work better. We're more productive. We can analyze information better. We make better choices. When we don't feel safe, whether we like it or not, our brains are still wired for that fight, flight, freeze. And we don't make our best decisions in those places. So we wanted to save some time today, and it looks like we actually managed to do that. We've got about 10 minutes left. We wanted to save some time today to talk with you all about barriers to engagement that you're experiencing and be able to use this amazing collaborative that we have here to generate ideas for how you all can overcome some of the struggles that you're seeing, or sharing some of the successes that you've had with us for when you've successfully been able to engage parent and what the outcomes have been and how that's changed. So if you want to take yourself off of mute when you have something to say, we'd love for someone to be able to share with us today.
And if anything that we've talked about between the relationship and the safety and the looking at strengths and the tribe, which when Janet turned Joel and I onto that book, it was like, whoa. It really did open up our eyes, and we are so appreciative because that is, if we can work from this foundation, families will engage. Michael, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I just have a question about engagement with families where one of the caretakers has some challenging mental health issues. I'm just curious about some strategies that the 3 of you all may have been able to use or have seen in your respective states on how to work with and empower families that have some of these challenges.
I'll jump in there and kind of pat Louisiana on the back, because in our system, even though the child is the identified person that gets the referral, I mentioned earlier when I was talking about our company, is even though the child is the one that's referred, they get a youth support peer worker, but the parent also gets a parent support worker. And I think that's real important. In Louisiana, we have like a Young Marines program where these kids that are having challenges will go off for 6 weeks and they'll do push-ups, and it's a very kind of military thing. And I know kids that have done that and they come back, yes, sir, they're gung-ho and stuff, but the environment wasn't really all that great. And so they eventually go, not always, of course, but they will go back to their old problems because the environment was just not that great. So I don't know if other people have any ideas, but that's really, really challenging when you kind of realize that the parents have their own struggles too. So I'm glad you brought that up, Michael.
Yes, and in New York, we, a lot of our services are done as a triad type of thing. There's the clinician, the care manager, if that's the level of care that they're in, the family advocate, parent partner, and the youth advocate. So that there's this hyper focus on the individuality, but as a team. And that also helps. We are strong believers that there's a family should not be referred to family support, but that it's an automatic and that they can opt out. We like an opt-out environment versus an opt-in, because sometimes when we're working with families, even if the family doesn't identify that they have a complex mental health challenge themselves, every family raising children with in any system, any of the cross systems in the child serving world, there's trauma, there's some stuff. If you didn't have it before, you got it when you're going through it. And so our job, especially around with family peer support for both Janet and Joel and myself, we're strong believers that if you connect one parent with another parent, great things can happen. And some of those great things are around, addressing their own challenges and their own needs. And if we can help families understand that when they're healthy, the family gets healthy as best it can. And they grow and they develop and they change. So I would say if don't have a family peer as a partner, go get yourself one of them and partner up and find a youth as well, because our young people need a young person to talk to, not another old person.
I would just add that one thing, Michael, is that I don't know any parent who held their child for the first time and didn't want to do better by that child than was done, even if they had an excellent upbringing. So relating to that person in a way that tells them, we know that you want to do well by your child. We know that you're doing everything you can to meet their needs. And we're going to help you find new ways to do that and improve the ways that you've got. We're here to work with you on that. I think can be a way to initiate some engagement on them and help them feel like they are doing okay and that they do have a way forward to do better. And Laura, I see you've got your hand up. We've got some stuff in the chat too. So
I was just gonna say that one of the things that I think that because we're all used to doing it, we don't think about it. But I had a comment made to me today that this individual didn't want to go to therapy because how could they trust a therapist whose job it was to know them better than they knew themselves and to question who they were? And I just kind of sat there going, what? That's not what a therapist does. But they really believe that a therapist their job was to crawl into their brain, pull it apart, identify everything wrong and broken about them, and tell them why to go change it. And they're going to crawl into who I am and decide that I'm a different person than I need to be. I mean, that was really uncomfortable. And I think that often when we're handling mental health stuff, it doesn't occur to us to explain what the role of the people at the table is. We're like, oh, you need a therapist. A therapist, the implication may be that there's something wrong with who I am intrinsically, and you want to change who I am. And that's your answer to fixing our problem. Do we ever actually take the time to explain down to that level of what everyone's role is? I mean, a case manager sets up appointments and this person handles your medication and your therapist does what exactly? And I don't think we tell people what a therapist is supposed to do. And so I just think trust is the gateway to vulnerability. It is. But if we don't know what they're doing, why would we go be vulnerable with someone who doesn't? I mean, really, are you assigning me someone to make me be a different person? And if that's our lens, why would we engage?
Right. I think that goes back to like what we wanted to share when we came up with the headings, and then we filled in, because those were the things that helped us when we were living that life every single day. Is that, you know, we can't have that drive-by questioning, right? Rapid fire, boom, 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 and without a relationship. The best recovery comes from a relationship rather than this, and as Janet said, this do-to business, right? Families have a perception that working with clinical folks, care managers, that they're going to handle everything, and miraculously, everyone's going to get stronger. And that doesn't happen like that. There's a lot of work that goes into that change. And I think that that's sometimes what we have to bring up. And I love, Jerome, you put in that you have the courage to say that we don't trust. And that's important.
Jessica.
Appreciative of the answers.
Sorry, say that again, Michael.
I said I'm appreciative of the answers. Thank you.
We appreciate the question.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica wrote in, a big barrier we often come across is our case managers are younger with no kids. What are some ways or exercises we can use to build empathy for our younger case managers? That was brought up yesterday a lot, right? Like there was someone who was saying that his whole perspective changed. He thought he was doing such a great job on managing his case managers and everything, and then he had children. And he learned what he didn't know. So any good thoughts out there to share with Jessica?
I had a doctor once that was a horrible psychiatrist until he had kids. And then all of a sudden he was one of the best psychiatrists we'd worked with. And the only thing that changed was his experience with his own children. I think that there's a balance, because when you have someone show up in your house, you don't want to say, you don't have kids, do you? Because that's really rude. But sometimes their questions are, you're like, if you had a kid, you wouldn't have asked me that question because it would already be obvious. So I think there needs to be a way for us to, as families, ask politely in a way that builds, collaboration, as opposed to, call me back in 5 years when your kid's out of diapers and we can have a chat when your kids talk back to you. Because I think that is a barrier, and we don't want to be elitist, but at the same time, you're 22 and a half, you've been out of school for 30 hot seconds, and now you're telling me, and I see that they don't stay in a position very long because of burnout. I always say the good ones are promoted out of positions of being in the family into supervisors roles, and the bad ones leave, and then everyone else in the middle burns out and finds something that pays better. And I love all of my case managers and my care workers, but there's the ones that you're like, huh? And I, as a family, have not found a polite way to say, I don't think you understand my life.
Just say it like that. Sometimes blunt works much better. A lot of times that we can help new, younger. Well, it doesn't matter how long you've been out of school. I went back to school when I was an adult, and I still didn't know anything and wouldn't have been helpful to a family doing case management or therapy when I got out of school, directly out of school. But sometimes an exercise you can do is have them pretend to be the family, right? Do the cans on them, do the work that a family would do, right? So do some role play and help our newer, because some of the new, even their heart and their passion is in the right place, we're assuming and hoping, and then help them understand that, each family is unique, and how would they feel? I always would say when I would do in-service work is, so if my son was your son, what would you do? Right? I've just given you the scenario. How would you help yourself? How would you help this family with these things? And I love Joel's strength-based manner. Take that picture. That in itself, if they can come up with 15 strengths on the very first, use that during interviews. I might do that. That's a cool idea. Use that as part of your interview process.
One thing that I used to do is just tell my workers, the young ones that are coming in, is normalize their feelings. Also, let them know, like, although I may not have kids, but you're the expert in your own family. You're going to tell me about your own family. So, you have to have kids to listen to you, to understand you, to validate your feelings. And I don't have to have kids to be passionate about my work, have investment in children, compassion, empathy, sympathy. But you are the expert of your own child. So you're going to teach me how I'm going to be able to be of help. So in my agency, we do have a lot of a young population coming in as social workers, still live with their parents, very young adults, which is a running joke, I guess, that maybe we detained them when they were in kindergarten. It's pretty funny, So I work for child welfare, so we were just like, I probably went to school to do a referral, like in kindergarten, but we do tell them, have empathy, normalize their feelings of being apprehensive that they're talking to some 19-year-old, like a young doctor. We've had generations go to a young doctor, older generations, and they're like, you're a doctor, like what Mickey Mouse medical school did you go to, so but we throw it back on them and say, look, you are the expert in your child, and I'm an expert, so let's work together, right? I'm an expert in child welfare. I went to school to invest in your child, to help your child, but you are the expert in your own child, so let's collaborate together. Let's work together as experts in our own element and see what we can come up with. So kind of shifting that you're young, you could be my kid, into let's be experts together. So that's kind of worked a little bit. We still get some pushback, but putting it on them to knowing that I'm going to learn from you, that kind of eases the pain.
That's excellent. You guys have got great. I hope we can get copies of the chat, because you're teaching us things.